All right, now we are preparing for the holiday of Purim. Still learning from this book, Torah, or the first, written by the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. First, it wasn't Lubavitch then, it was Chabad. The first Chabad Rebbe. Chabad moved to the city of Lubavitch in the beginning of the second Rebbe, when the second Rebbe started. There's 7 Rebbes altogether in Chabad, and the first one was Rabbi Shner Zalman. He also wrote a very famous book called the Tanya, and he also wrote a book called Shulchan Aruch of the Rav. Anyway, here we have the book Torah, and he explains, that's what we've been learning up to now. So now we're going to learn about the holiday of Purim. Holiday of Purim is a very interesting holiday. Very interesting holiday. First of all, it happened right between the first and the second temples, right before the second temple, actually. In fact, the holiday of Purim occurred because the building of the second temple was delayed by certain enemies of Judaism that were over there, the Sadducees and the others. What is it? The Shomronim. In any case, they delayed the whole building of the temple, and here it is, right before the temple, and there's ruling the world. Shortly there, before that, there was ruling the world the Babylonians. The Babylonians destroyed the first temple, but the Persians conquered the Babylonians. Koresh, King Koresh conquered the world, took it away from this, and eventually, anyways, things developed, and the king of the world became this person called Achashverosh. And Achashverosh was a nut. The guy was a nut. He was out of his mind, but he was a king, and he was a very powerful king. And he made this big party to celebrate the fact that it says there was several reasons why he celebrated, but the main reason is that according to his calculations, the time for the Jewish redemption had passed. The Jews there was a prophecy in Jeremiah, and everybody knew what the Jewish prophet said. Prophecy in Jeremiah that the Jews were supposed to return back to Israel or have the temple built or whatever in 70 years. And according to his calculations, the 70 years already passed, and he made a big party. And being that he was the king of the world, so everybody was afraid of him. And the Jews figured, why take any chances? So he made a big party and invited the Jews to a special party that he made for them after a post party. A post party he made for all the Jews. And the Jews all came and they participated in this party. And because of that, God got angry at them. Other reasons also. Anyway, God got angry at them. And suddenly stood up this fellow called Haman, and he made a decree to kill all the Jews. Which that's already going too far. You understand? God gets angry at the Jews. He punishes the Jews, but he's not going to destroy the Jews. That's it. That's crossing the line. So we see all the prophets and things about the Isaiah and all these prophets of doom, and they say, God says, I'm going to wipe you out, even in the Bible, in the Chumash, in Deuteronomy, and in the book of Leviticus, near the end. Because God said they're going to wipe you out, and I'm going to scatter you all around, and I'm going to punish you, and you're going to have terrible things. And we see that God has really done all these terrible things to the Jews, but wiping the Jews out totally, no way. Despite everything the Jews have done, and they've done almost everything that they could, God will never destroy the Jews. So forget it, all of you missionaries and all of these. It's not going to happen. You can make up whatever you want to. So here's the example. Purim. All the Jews did this terrible sin. They worshipped. It says that Haman had a little idol around his neck, and they all bowed down to it. Even more, it says in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, they also bowed down. He made a big idol, and they all bowed down to it. And you can't blame them. I mean, you can't blame the Jews. I mean, they're getting all these terrible things just because they're Jews. If they weren't Jews, God wouldn't be so exacting with them. So anyway, Jews did a lot of sins, and they left God, and they ate this meal, and they bowed down to Haman, and they did all these terrible things. So comes along Haman, and he says, that's it, I'm going to destroy all the Jews. And that's what the story is. That's what the story is talking about. This is where the story occurs. The Jews have almost given up totally on the future redemption. Right? The second temple was supposed to be built, and it just kept delaying and delaying. And meanwhile, the Jews were surrounded by all these temptations and all these threats and all these this. So stands up one person, he saves the whole day, and that is Mordechai. And Mordechai, he's like the Moses of the generations. He's the Lubavitcher Rebbe of his generation, and he turns the whole thing around. And it all centers around Esther and Achashverosh. Okay, so what happens is that Esther, now interestingly enough, we talked about this also before. The holiday of Purim, it's the only holiday in Judaism that doesn't have a Hebrew name. It says clearly the word Pur is an Persian word. It says in the Megillah, Pur hua goral. Pur, these are lots, but the word for lot in Hebrew is a goral, and it's called Pur. Also, it doesn't have the name of God in it. It's the only book in Judaism that does not have God's name written in any form. It doesn't say the Almighty or they prayed to God or something, other form of God. There's Midrashim that says anytime it says Achashverosh, it refers to God. Achari is for Reishi Shalo. It says the end and the beginning of his. And when it says Hamelech, the king, but clearly God's name is not written. So this was a holiday in the depth of the exile. There was no holy temple. The Jewish people were threatened. The ruler of the world was a non-Jew and that hated them, etc. So it says what happens is that amazing thing happens, and Esther goes in to to see the king, and the king could have. She went in uninvited, which was unheard of. Nobody went in uninvited to the king, and Esther went in uninvited to the king. Why did she go in? Because Mordechai told her that she should go. Sent a message that she should go in because there was a terrible decree on the Jews, and Esther had not told the king that she was a Jew. The law was over there that the king was like a real wacko. You know, the king was really not a normal person. But it says, what does it say? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if anyone that came into the king uninvited would get killed. That was, if you happened to stray in, the mailman came in uninvited, that's it. You go in, but you can never come out of the king's room. So anyway, Esther went in uninvited. The only way that you get saved is if the king puts out his scepter. So he puts out his scepter to Esther, and he says, "I'll give you anything you want." So what is all of a sudden she starts working intelligently. She says, she says to the king, "Your Majesty, what I want is that you should make a meal. Me and you and Haman are going to make a meal together, a feast." So they do it, and the king says, "Okay, Esther, I really like you. Whatever you want, I'll give you." She said, "Let's make another meal." So they made the second meal. So Esther, Atosef Esther to the Ber Lifnei HaMelech. And Esther continued speaking in front of the king, Vatipol Lifnei Raglav, and she fell before his feet. And she prayed and begged to him, La'avir et Rat Haman Agagi, to rescind, to remove the evil decree of Haman Agagi and his thought that he made on the Jews. Okay, like I said before, the name of God does not appear, but some people say, it says the Midrash, that anytime it mentions the word Achashverosh, it really refers to God. It can also be referred to God. Not it really refers. Also can be used as a metaphor for God. Of course, there was a person called Achashverosh, and there was a lady called Esther, and there was someone called Mordechai. But all of these things in the physical world, they also represent spiritual spiritual things as well. So that's what it says, that she bowed down, she prayed, that Esther fell down in front of the king, and in front of his feet, and she cried and she beseeched him to get rid of the decree. Okay, so who is the king over here? The king is Achashverosh, but sometimes the word Achashverosh, and also when it says Amelech, is referring to God. So let's see how does this work out. How can it be relevant and before God? Lomar say lifnei raglav, that she fell in front of. If we say that she fell into the feet before the feet of Achashverosh, the king, that's understandable. But if we say that she fell in front of the feet of God, what does that mean? Say she bowed down to God. What does it mean? She fell in front of God. In other words, Esther was pleading to God to remove the decree of Haman. And that is hinted at by the fact that it says in the Megillah that she fell to the feet of the king. The king was, in this case, Achashverosh, but it also implies that her real intention, when she was praying, was God. Hine. How is it relevant to say in front of God that he's got feet? Hello, Ein lo demuta guf. God hasn't got any feet. Ein lo guf. God hasn't got a body. But it is like this. The boyer mahus of tefillah. Let's understand what is prayer. Now let's understand what is prayer. Now, especially in the time of exile, when the Jews are far away from God, no matter how far away you are, and this is also non-Jews, no matter how far a person away is from God, he can be the furthest idolater, biggest sinner. One genuine prayer to God can change the whole thing. How is it in the ability? The call of any person, litpalel, to pray. Anyone can pray. I'm sure you can pray. You can do whatever you want to. But how is it that God listens to what we say? God actually changes the world according to our prayers. How can it be? Israel, the Jewish people, they're called the name of Esther. There's a lot of names for the Jewish people. Nikra b'shem b'chinas Rachel. Sometimes the Jewish people are called by the name of Rachel. When is that? This is when their Judaism is revealed. When the Jewish people are being revealed, when their Judaism is being revealed. That suddenly his consciousness goes back up to its source, and the person realizes who he really is. Like it says, like it says, a Rachel also means a sheep before the shearers. When people shear a sheep, ever see sheep being sheared? As soon as they're held down, you start to shear them, they're quiet. They don't run around. You have to hold them down a little bit, but that little bit you hold them down, and then you shear them and they're quiet. Nelma, and also it's son mifnei the tibcha, says that like a sheep that is brought to slaughter. The Jewish people pushed him tzavarim l'shchita, but ratzon pasha. The Jewish people are willing to die for the sake of God, not to leave their Judaism. That's a Rachel. That it's revealed their Judaism. Also, and so it is in every single Jew. That when this will is revealed, to be united with God, to be one in one. Like it says, His glory is on the heavens and the earth. Right? Go up to another person, a normal person, right? An American is no big deal now. A Ukrainian, right? And they put him up in front of a firing squad and just say, all you have to do is say, I am a Russian, and we'll let you go. They'll say, I'm a Russian. What's the problem, right? Go up in front of a person, any religion in the world, and just say, all you have to do is say, I am not whatever it is, whatever. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Catholic. I'm not a this. Just say those words. I am not a Catholic. They'll say it. What's the big deal? You go to a Jew and say I'm not a Jew, and we'll let you go. There is a lot of Jews that would do it, but there will be some Jews that will refuse to say it. I'm not going to do it. We're going to kill you. You want to die? No. If they think about it, then they will say, okay, you know what? I'll say I'm not a Jew. You think so? The whole holiday of Purim is based on the fact that all of the Jews in that time, all of the Jews, all they had to do was just say those three words, I'm not Jewish, and there wouldn't have been any holiday, there wouldn't have been any problems, no one would have been any threat of death, and no one said, I'm not Jewish. No one said, that's what we say. That's the holiday. That's revealing Judaism. That's the essence of your Jewish soul. Each and every Jew wants to be included in God. That's the revelation of the true Jewish soul. We want to live, but on the other hand, we want to be Jewish more. Nobody wants to die. No Jew wants to die. Even at the time when he says, I'm a Jew, he doesn't want to die. He's not giving his life. He's not going to give his life, but he just can't separate from Judaism. It doesn't make any sense. And those people in the time of Haman, that Haman said, I'm going to kill all the Jews, all they had to do was say, I'm not Jewish, and there wouldn't be any decree. But they somehow or other, they couldn't do it. And like we said before, these were the same Jews, and they just, about a few months earlier, they were dancing and eating at the meal of Achashverosh, bowing down to the idol. Because they thought that wasn't denying their Judaism. Somehow or other, they figured that. But to come right straight front out and admit and announce, I'm not Jewish, they never thought it would come to that. Every Jew would be, in theory, of course, what's the problem? I'll say, I'm not Jewish, so big deal, let this guy kill me. But suddenly it comes up to that one moment and the mind doesn't work. All the thing that works is just Judaism. Like it says, Hodo Allah, it's a Shamayim. Like it says, that God's glory is on the heavens and the earth. It says the world shines His glory. The world is filled with God's glory. This is the ray of godliness. That the world is really surrendered to God. But calls a man, and all the time she be galus, that it's revealed. Ubislavos, this is called Rachel. Suddenly a Jew realizes that the whole world is just a ray of godliness, and that a Jew is attached to God Himself, the source of all these rays that create the world and create Achashverosh and create everything. When a Jew reveals this true source of his soul, that's called Rachel. Katzon Lativcha, he's willing even to go like a sheep to the slaughter for the sake of his Judaism. If it comes to that. But when a Jewish nature is not revealed, then it's called Esther. Right? All the time the Jews aren't pressed to reveal their essence, then it's called Esther. Like it says, Astir Panai, I will conceal my face by Yomahu on that day. Sovrim, not like the world thinks, and that if Judaism is not revealed, then they're not Jewish. It's not so. That every single Jew has this point of Judaism inside of it. It's hidden. There's no pressure. There's no reason. Concealed. No education. Maybe his mother never told him she was Jewish. Esther, and that's the level of Esther. Esther means concealed. This true Jewish essence, nature, attached to the essence of God, is called Esther. Now you can ask yourself a question: What are we talking about here? What do you mean this essence attached to God? What does it mean? So we have to understand that when the secret to world peace, to world prosperity, to love, to joy, is only when everyone feels the Creator. When everyone feels the Creator, so first of all, what happens is it takes a lot of the pressure off of life. Suddenly you realize that it's not just me against the world. Suddenly you realize that God is really creating the world, and that God is my friend. And the things that happen in the world happen for us. A lot of times very difficult things happen, I agree. And most of the things that happen in the world, if not all of them, are totally not understandable. And the things that we think are understandable, sometimes become the least understandable, right? The person wants to, with all of his being, just wants to win the lottery, and he wins $100 million, and it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to So sometimes what's exactly we think is the worst, it comes out to be the best, and the best is the worst. Nevertheless, the fact of the matter is, when the world feels that there's a creator, and when the world feels that the creator is creating them, and when everyone in the world feels that life is an amazing gift and an amazing responsibility, and that God is empowering each and every one of us to make the world a little bit better on his terms, then the world is a much calmer place, right? I know people, God forbid, they commit suicide. I know a couple people because they think there's just nothing left in life for them. But the fact is that life is calling them. Life is calling each and every one of us. That life is in this, it is God, right? That's God's gift. That's God's, how do you say, signature on us that we're alive. When the world feels God, then they feel reality. If they don't, they're just trapped up in their mind and their thoughts and their negativity. So the Jewish people, they're the ones that are supposed to reveal this. And that's in the essence of every single Jew. That's why it's so necessary. And that's why a Jew is even willing to give his life, even though he might not even be aware of it, for this, because it's such an important thing, because it's the only way to really make the world a good place. And we are the only ambassadors of the Creator. But this awareness that we have of what God is Esther. It's concealed. That's the name Esther. But Tzorach also we have to reveal it from being hidden, or mistara, and from its concealment. This concealment is called like a rose among the thorns. A rose among the thorns. This revelation, this feeling of the Creator, that there's God, that there's meaning, that there's love, that there's purpose, that there's blessing in the world. This is like a rose among the thorns. The world is the thorns. Hainu shachochim and monin, that the world, the thorns prevent, umastirim, and they hide. It's the rose. The calling olam, and everything that's in the world of Maisa olam hazeh, hanasim mastirim, whatever. Olam hazeh, hanasim b'kol leiv. If a person gets too involved in the world, right? The world is not as a good place. Exactly the opposite. We're here in order to fix up the world. But if a person lets the world control him, right? It's like a person who buys a new Ferrari. Who owns the what? He owns the Ferrari, or the Ferrari owns him? Right? He's polishing it up all the time. He's worried about it. This is his whole identity. What do you think about my Ferrari? Oh, what do you think about? If somebody says, "Oh, your car stinks. Your car is ugly," well, he feels so terrible because the world has conquered him. Right? The Ferrari doesn't belong to him. He belongs to the Ferrari. The money in his bank account, it's not his money. He belongs to the money. If he loses it, he loses his life. There's people that are like that. If a person gets too involved in the world, then the world becomes what's called thorns, and they conceal this level of godliness from being revealed. And when we talk about this world, we're also talking about the spiritual worlds also. That's what's wrong with idolatry. Idolatry removes your mind from the godliness which is creating you. You start thinking about what you can receive instead of what you can give. That's the level of Esther. This level of Esther, whom Soteris is concealed by Yomahu in that day. I will conceal my day in that Bayomahu, I will conceal my face Bayomahu on that day. It's a sentence in Deuteronomy. Okay, now we're going to get to this an interesting thing. There's what's called day and there's night, and there's what's called here and there. Here and there. Day and night is Yom V'Layla. Day is Yom Layla. Then there's what's called Hahu, means over there. And Zeh means here. So let's see. And there's what's called Bechinat Yom Hahu. There's what's called on that day. V'yesh Bechinat Bayom Hazeh. There's also what's called on this day. V'yesh Bechinas Laila Hahu. There is what is called that night. V'yesh Bechinas Halayla Hazeh, which is called this night. So in other words, There's a day which is here, a day which is there, a night which is here, and a night which is there. Okay, day and here are both types of revelation. There and night are two types of concealment. So now we're going to make combinations between these two things, and we're going to see what's going on. Okay, what did we just finish saying? We just finished saying the whole world depends on Jews knowing that they're Jews. The whole blessing, the whole prosperity of the world depends on the Jews knowing and advertising the fact that they're Jews. What does it mean, advertising? That there's a creator, and the creator is creating everyone. The creator is creating everyone. He's creating everyone for a purpose. That's what the Torah is, to tell us what are the manufacturer's instructions. So here we go. Let's go. Interesting. The turning point in the Megillah. We're going to learn this today. The Megillah. The turning point in the Megillah is Balayla hu nadash nasa melech. It says that the king on that night. It says on that night, the king's sleep was disturbed. On that night, the king's sleep was disturbed. So that means like over there, the night that's over there, that's like the ultimate darkness that there can be. It says that's when the king's sleep was disturbed. So let's see, let's have a look. Ready? So there's what's called Bayomahu. Yesh Bechinas, which is called Bayom Hazeh. It's called that day, this day. There's also that night, the night that's over there, and there's this night. Let's see, how does this work out as far as the revelation of God goes? It says, it says, this is the day that God made. Let us be happy. One of the Psalms we say also in the Hallel prayer. Because and it says, Vayosha Hashem Bayomahu. And it says that God saved the Jewish people by Bayomahu. That's when they went over the Yam Suf, the Red Sea. So here it says this day, then it says that day. Because see, Holiday Hazeh, it says this night, the night the Jews left Egypt. Leil Shimurim, it says it's a night of what do you say, of observation. Because see, Halayla, that's in this Megillah. Halayla in the Dadash Nasa Melech, it says on that night was disturbed the sleep of the king. Okay, so what do we have? We have this day, this night, that night. That night is the ultimate concealment of God. Night is darkness. That means something over there. That over there. Not this right in front of us. This when we say this right here, this is lenochach. This is in front of us. This is my God, and I will praise him. That's what the Jewish people said when after they crossed the sea. So they all saw godliness. They said, "This is my God." This is revelation, like a king, basar v'dam, like a physical king. Asher kol medinas malchusa, that the whole entire kingship is negated to him. Why? Machmas sheinei rose as melech, because the eyes see the king. Now I know sheyeh bebechinas yisgalus elokusa, there will be revealed godliness. Ke'ilu ein of rose oto, as though his eyes see him. Right? Everybody sees the king. The king passes through once. That's enough for everybody. Everybody knows the king is in the palace, and that's he can come out anytime he wants to. So the whole entire kingdom is negated to the king. Here we're talking about the king of the world. It says the king of the world. We know that the king of the universe is not like a regular king, like King Arthur or somebody like that. He's like a big king. Everybody's afraid of him. But we're talking about our king. He creates the whole world. The world is like nothing to God. That what it says in another place, that the world is called something from nothing. So the world really is something. Dibra Torah b'lashon b'nei Adam. The Torah is just talking about language we can understand. She'einenu agash is that our eyes, einu near as we can't see ayin, we can't see God, so we call God nothing. The world is something from nothing. Like Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to his pupils, Yehi ratzon, may it be God's will, Shia mor shamayim aleichem kamor basar b'dam. Okay, so what does it mean? God is the king. God is revealing the fact that the whole world is like nothing to him, nothing. Why don't we see it? We don't see it, but that's the fact of the matter. The world really is totally a miracle, and God is creating it all the time. We just don't see this. That's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to his pupils. His pupils said when he was on his deathbed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was like the big genius. He was the holiest man of his generation. He had thousands of pupils. And they said to him, his choice pupils were around his deathbed, and they said, Rabbi, tell us the last words. He said, you should be afraid of God like you're afraid of people. And they said, what? That's your last word? They figured maybe he was, he wasn't fully conscious. They said, you should know that when a person does a sin, he says, I hope nobody sees me. They're not thinking about God. In other words, really, God does see us. And God is, of course, the world is really nothing to God. Everything is revealed to God. Everything, right? Nowadays, they have these security cameras that reveal everything. Well, God infinitely more so. Everything is revealed to God, but we don't see it. We don't feel it. That's the level of Zehayom. What does it mean, Zehayom? Maybe we don't see it, but the fact of the matter is that God is creating everything, controlling everything. When there's nighttime, this is choshech ba'afela. This is darkness. She'enu raklum. You don't see anything. Even though you know that God exists, it's not grasped in your mind at all. This is also what's called nighttime. Nighttime means that nobody here in this story we had at least Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he knew 100% that God sees you. And he's telling his pupils, if you don't feel that God sees you, so at least be afraid of people, right? But at least he knew. But then there's times when nobody knows. That's called nighttime. Even in the time of night, when God is totally concealed, you can also reveal him. How? Zeh means in front of me. How can you see and feel God in the time of night when there's no light whatsoever, right? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he felt godliness all the time. But how can we feel it? It says, how can we feel it now? God is concealed everywhere. Hine kasi, that's what it says. Malikol Eretz Kavodo. The world is filled with his glory. Shozivish Pashtos. It's a ray of godliness. It says, is it not so that the heavens and the earth I fill? Vishnei Emes. 1 second. It says that God is just a ray of godliness is in the world. And here it says, no, that my essence is in the world. What's going on? Is just a ray of godliness in the world, or is it the essence of God? It's like having a picture, of your parents in your pocket, or actually your parents are here. Which is the one? A picture means that you know that your parents exist somewhere, right? You don't know where. You have a picture, but you have actually your parents are with you in your house. Well, that's a totally different thing. The same thing. Is the godliness just like a ray, like a picture in the world? We know God exists, but we don't know where he is. Or is God's really himself is really here? Says Rebbe Shneim Emes. Ket hashamayim et ha'oretz hu malei rak haguf hu mastir. God really fills the heavens and the earth. But only the problem is the heavens and the earth also conceal. Umalo kol ha'oretz, that what it says, that God's only his glory fills the world. This is a zivis pashtus just break. This is just a ray of godliness. Lachayot et olamos, to keep the worlds alive. Hu bechinas tefisa musegas. This you can sort of understand. The batal v'chalal, the kula kamekalo chashiv. You can look at the world and you can understand the world is not creating itself. Nothing creates itself. What's keeping everything alive? Look at a leaf on a tree. Look, a bird in the sky, right? Everything is just amazing. It's amazing miracles. These things are actually alive in themselves. And you can say, okay, it's just, evolution. And the bird alive is alive because before the birds, there was bugs. Before the bugs, there was amoebas. Before the amoebas, there was something. You can say that if you want to. Sure, of course. But on the other hand, if you want to say maybe God is creating it, then all of a sudden you start to see God a little bit. But that's only seeing a ray of godliness, how God is keeping the world alive. Even though it's nighttime, nevertheless, we can see this, even though now it's the time of exile. And we are far away from God. God is not revealed like it was in the time of the temple. But nevertheless, you can look at the rain falling, you can look at a sunset, you can still see there's an option to understand that it's God that's doing the whole thing. Oh, so you get a little bit of a flash of what godliness is. Why? Because it has to be because of emunah. You have to have faith. Because of the great faith, shi'amin be'emunah shlema, zachav Torah. If you have pure faith in God, then it's as though you see. Then it's as though you see. Okay, that's talking about the God of nature. What about the God of the Jews? The God that took us out of Egypt? That's a different God. Here we're talking about God, that type of God, seeing the God of nature. That's sort of like the God that Paro saw. Paro knew that there was nature. He also knew that there was powers in the world. As already, if you want to see the God of the Jews, you have to have what's called cement and bricks. The Jewish people, when they were in exile, they had to have cement and bricks. That's what they worked at. Chomer bilaveni for 210 years. Radu Shana. They had to work a chomer bilaveni. We also now have the same thing. You want to go out of Egypt, you have to work in cement and bricks. What is a cement and bricks? What's he talking about? There has to be chomer that's called a chomer. Leveni and this libun hilchasa. These are two principles which are used in learning the Torah. Learning the Torah now sharpens a person, a Jew. A Jew, not talking about a non-Jew. That they say, with the South Koreans or whatever it is, that you learn the Talmud, you become smart. There's very smart Jews convinced them of that in order to sell them Talmuds. But the fact of the matter is, it's not so. It's not so. They can believe it's so. It could be. There's a joke. I'll tell you the joke. I'm sure you know the joke, but now you're going to know the joke. The joke is that a non-Jew comes up to a Jew and says, "Why are you Jews so smart?" And the Jew says, "I'll tell you why, because we eat sardines." Says, "Sardines? That's ridiculous. I eat sardines. I don't think, you have all these Nobel Prize winners are all Jews and everything. It's no, not just regular sardines. You have to eat special sardines." He says, "Really? Yeah." It says, "It's a little bit expensive, but it's worth it to get smart." "How much is it?" $20 a can. He says, "Okay, it'll make me smart. I'll buy it." So I'll bring him tomorrow. Brings tomorrow. Here you have to eat 50 cans of sardines. $20 a can. That's $1,000. Says that's all, but those are just the regular sardines that I buy. From this is no. It looks like regular sardines, but it's not. It's special sardines. They have a special blessing. It's specially made. Okay, so the person eats the sardines, and after you have to eat them in a week. So he eats them in a week, and he finishes, and he comes back after a week. He says, "I don't understand. I ate the sardines. I don't feel any smarter." He says, "See," he said, I think you're tricking me. I think you're lying to me." So see, you're already getting smarter. See, you realize I'm tricking you. You're already smarter. Those people that they say were learning the Talmud in what is North Korea or South Korea, they say they're getting smarter. It's some smart Jewish guy tricked them, but the fact of the matter is it's not so. Okay, in fact is that a non-Jew is forbidden to learn the Talmud. Not supposed to learn the Talmud. The Talmud was only given to the Jews. Okay, you want to see the God of the Jews? A Jew, you want to see the God of the Jews? You have to learn Torah. That's what it says. Chomer is kol v'chomer. Libun hilchasa. These are two principles which are used in learning the Talmud. That's Bechal Avoda Basara. This is the Breita. Breita is bar, outside. That's what it says. Be'emet kol makabel of all Torah, ma'avirim of all derech eretz. A person that learns the Torah, it says that the world has less of an effect on him. His spiritual glasses become cleaner. All right, we're going to have to continue this tomorrow. What's this got to do with Purim? We'll see. God willing, tomorrow. God willing, tomorrow we'll see. But you have to understand a very basic thing, is the essence of the Jewish people is the Torah. And it says that Mordechai, one of the things that Mordechai did was that he gathered 22,000 children. And when there was decree of Haman came out to kill all the Jews, so he gathered 22,000 children and he learned in public Torah with them. What did he do that for? We'll talk about this more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's go to the Davar Malchut. Today we're going to learn in the Davar Malchut about how all of the synagogues in the world are going to fly to Israel.